Well, the Hyundai Accent has really dominated the subcompact segment here in Canada, and that's on the back of a very stylish little car that's practical and offers great value for your dollar. But Nissan's not to be trifled with, and they've showed up this year with a slightly refreshed version of their Versa Note, seen here in top-of-the-line SL trim. And it's got a couple of tricks up its sleeve. I've had this car for the past week, and I've been really impressed by the amazing fuel economy, not to mention the class-leading cargo capacity. So I've come about an hour north of the city. I've found some nice windy roads, and I'm going to put it through its paces today to show you why I think this is a great option if you're in the market for an inexpensive compact car. For 2017, Nissan has introduced some minor tweaks comprised mostly of cosmetic updates. Most prominently is a revised front fascia featuring Nissan's V-Motion grille. There are new colors for 2017, as well as revised headlamps, bumpers, and on the inside a new steering wheel and larger cup holders. The CVT transmission has been retuned and continues to simulate gear shifts. Simulates being the operative word here, as it still holds gears like we've come to expect from a CVT. All in all, the changes are very minor, but do help to contribute to what I think is a smart-looking vehicle on the outside and the inside. So this car starts at just under $15,000, and for that amount of money you'd expect some cost-saving measures somewhere, and well, you wouldn't be wrong. In this case, it's hard plastics as far as the eye can see. Plastic, 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 but you know what? Outside of the material use in here, I think it's kind of a clever design. I think they've used it effectively and simply, if a little bit utilitarian. I'll direct you to the instrument cluster, which is really clever because it includes a trip computer on the inside of the speedometer, normally dead space. Well, here you can cycle through things like temperature and your fuel economy and kilometers until your tank of gas is empty and so on. So just a kind of clever integration of that. Moving over to the head unit, this car being the SL top trim is equipped with a navigation screen and a backup camera. In addition to that, it comes with kind of a bird's eye view camera, and that is a stitching together of 4 cameras that gives you the sensation of having a camera hovering above your car. That's really great when you're squeezing in and out of tight parking spaces, and certainly something you see on much more expensive vehicles. When I was growing up, my dad had a Hyundai Excel, and that was a tiny little car, and he used to say to me, "Mike, it's bigger on the inside than it looks," and I kind of always thought that was silly, but I've spent the last week in this Versa Note, and I get what he was saying. Look at this. I'm sitting perfectly upright. This is my driving position, and look at how much legroom I have. This is truly amazing. This is the type of legroom that would put a full-size sedan to shame. And there's no transmission tunnel, so better yet, you can actually fit 3 adults in here if you had to, and that's not just marketing spin. So let's talk about driving dynamics, and I'm going to keep it brief today, which I wouldn't normally do, but I've got 2 reasons, so hear me out. The first is, it's just not all that dynamic. It's a small car with a small engine, a 1.6 liter, 109 horsepower. It's mated to a CVT transmission, which means efficient, and it means quiet, and it certainly gets the job done, but it's slow and it feels slow, and you need to plan for your overtake maneuvers. The handling is not as crashy as I anticipated, but that degree of comfort comes at the expense of razor sharp handling. So this is not a car that's going to raise your blood pressure in a good way. But that brings me to my second point, which is none of that really matters. I think when you buy a car like this, you shouldn't obsess over instrumented testing. What you should focus on is practicality and value, and I think this Nissan Versa does that pretty well. And let's start with something that's really obvious when you get behind the wheel, and that is great outward visibility. So because of the high seating position, because of the low door sills and the hood of the car, which just disappears in front of you, you've got great visibility, which is a practical need if you're driving this car every day and you're going to the grocery store and you're picking the kids up for school, or you live in the city. You just always have a good sense of where the corners of your vehicle are. Another is just how efficient this thing is. You know, I mentioned it had a small engine with the CVT transmission, and you all laughed when I said 109 horsepower, but this thing is remarkably efficient. So I've been driving for 6 days now, about 450 kilometers in mixed city and highway driving, but a lot of stop-go traffic, and I'm averaging under 8 liters per 100 kilometers traveled. Now that's amazing, and what that means for you in practical terms is you're going to spend less time filling up with gas and less money over the life of this vehicle. Perhaps the biggest selling point of this Versa Note is the ample storage capacity and usable space they've managed to engineer into such a small footprint. The trunk features a false bottom that allows you to separate items, something I used to great effect in my week with the car. All Versa Notes come with standard 60/40 splitting rear seats, which, when folded down, reveal just shy of 1,100 liters of cargo capacity. So overall, the Versa Note is a really practical little car, but it's not perfect. Now, the big gripe I have with this vehicle has to do with interior ergonomics, and I just don't seem to fit well in this car. I'm 6'2" tall, and as a result of that, I've got to pull my seat way back or else I'd be driving with my knees touching my chin. Normally not a big issue, but this car doesn't have a telescoping steering wheel, so I end up driving like this, with my arms straight out in front of me. Look at this. Not comfortable after about an hour. Furthermore, even with my seat all the way back, my right knee still ends up banging against this hard plastic center console. I actually noticed a bit of a tenderness on the outside of my knee after 2 or 3 days. The third issue is the terrible location of the cup holders. They're way down here in front of the gear selector, and even me with my long arms, I have trouble reaching it. And actually earlier this week I spilled a coffee, so not great. And if you're a tall driver, you may want to make sure that you can fit into this vehicle comfortably for long periods of time. The Versa Note comes in 4 different flavors: S, SV, SR, and SL, the top tier model, which is what I'm in today. Now, starting with the S model, that is basic and bare bones, and that is just under $15,000. So for your $15,000, you get a manual transmission, a 5-speed. It's an additional $1,300 to upgrade to a CVT. I think most people are going to end up doing that. Still comes with 60/40 split rear seat, power locks and power windows, and air conditioning, as well as Bluetooth connectivity. Now, interesting to note, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto unavailable at any tier, any price level with this particular vehicle. So you may want to move up the ranks, as it were, into the SL trim, which starts at just under $20,000. But what that gives you is a 5.8-inch navigation screen, so you can find your way around without having to use your phone in your hand. Also, it gives you that around view camera, which is that wonderful bird's eye view camera that I discussed earlier, as well as a backup camera. You're gonna get keyless entry with that as well. You're gonna get a slightly upgraded cloth interior with some different stitching and bigger wheels on the outside, along with a couple of other subtle design changes. So overall, $20,000, not bad value, but once you get up to that price, you're looking at a base model in a class up. So really do consider and pay close attention to what features you need and what size you need, because it may be a good time to consider hopping up into a baseline version of the class above. Well, the clouds are rolling in overhead, and that's my sign to get back on the highway and head home. But you know what? I've really enjoyed the past week that I've spent with this Versa Note. I think some of the changes Nissan has implemented for 2017 have been, well, subtle but effective. I'm not a big fan of this brown color, new for 2017, but if you agree with me, there's about a dozen others to choose from. Other things I don't like, well, driving dynamics, middle of the road at best. Front ergonomics for a taller driver, well, I struggled with that. I just never really felt as though I was completely comfortable. But things that I like really outweigh the things that I dislike. Such a fuel efficient car, so much rear legroom, and a lot of practical capacity in the back. So overall, a great little package for under $20,000, and excellent if you really value above all else efficiency and practicality. For Motormouth Canada, my name's Mike Gurr. Thanks for watching.